beg your pardon, um, due to circumstances beyond your control, due to circumstances beyond our control, we have a late start. But nevertheless, it's a very interesting program because I have a very interesting person here. And as I said, my name is Stephen Malindra, and the program is Africa Speaks. Africa Speaks is the name of the program. Now, there's so many things that is happening here in the UK, and some of the things that are rarely mentioned are sexual offences. And today I felt that, if I get somebody to talk about that, uh, something which is happening within our community, and we have a massive, massive silence about it. Um, Her name is Rashida Namusisi. Say hello to our viewers.
Assalamu alaikum to my Muslim brothers and sisters, and hello everyone. So my name is Rashida Namasisi,
Yeah.
senior sister at the Havens.
Okay.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Now, there's a lot going on in our communities.
Yeah.
And I should say the African community as a whole, maybe even with the other communities, but my focus is mainly on the African communities. And
Yeah.
something that we probably need a definition on
That's
when we
right.
mean sexual violence.
That's right.
When what we really mean. Is everything included there in sexual violence? Even if I touch you a little bit, that's
Yeah.
sexual violence?
So I would like to sort of give a definition,
Okay.
and I think the understanding, even though we're talking about Africa as per se, but we want to broaden this and say this happens worldwide. Not necessarily Africans, but this happens pretty much to everyone in the world. This happens to all ages. This happens to young children, mothers, elderly, literally all types of children can suffer sexual violence.
Okay.
So, and what do you mean by sexual violence per definition?
All right.
So, really, we're talking about unwanted sexual practices or without someone's consent. So, doing something sexual relationships, sexual touching, without someone's consent, without someone giving consent freely.
Yeah, because questions are going to be asked about. I said, look, when the word sex is mentioned,
Yeah.
the first thing any other person thinks about is it. He's talking about something to do with sex. It's got nothing at all to do with that. But now even they used not to be violence against men.
That's right.
Men versus men. It's also included as sexual violence
It's
as well.
totally included
And
in
women
sexual-
versus women is
Yeah.
sexual violence as well there.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
so it's everywhere now.
It's everywhere, and I think the thing is sometimes there is this sort of stigmatized aspect of things.
Okay.
Yes, we understand men don't talk about these things,
yeah.
and it could be because of obviously it's their nature really, but really sexual violence in men, a lot of it goes underreported.
Okay.
So it could be female on female, man on man, really, as long as it's a sexual activity that one is not consenting to.
Okay.
And freely giving that sort of consent to say this is what I want.
Okay.
But one thing that sometimes people forget, that someone having given consent at the beginning of a sexual activity, or saying to someone that yes, it's okay to be touched, 5 minutes later someone can actually change their mind and say I don't want to be touched at that point. It doesn't mean that the consent that they gave 5 minutes ago is still valid.
Yeah.
So someone's consent can change in seconds.
So there's no gentleman's agreement as far as as far as sex is concerned. Because you shake on something and said no, we shook our hands on it.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's
If
not
you
there.
said if you said yes
Yeah.
at the beginning of the evening,
Yeah.
someone is totally bound to say no, I
Yeah.
don't want to go ahead
Yeah.
5 minutes later. So and it does not mean that actually you should carry on with the activity.
Yeah.
At that point in time the consent is invalid.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a one. Okay. I won't go into details about that, but I want us to have a look
Yeah.
at some of the things that we normally overlook.
Yeah.
Because you've, in your past experience, in your experience working there,
Yep.
you've seen you've seen those who come in who are actually hurt by it, and
Yeah.
those who have, recover from it or something. But
Yeah.
what do you do if somebody walks in straight into your offices tomorrow and says, "I've had a sexual incident," what's the first thing that
I think really the first thing that we do is we have to have that listening ear. With sexual violence, you believe, because at the end of the day, that person walking into your organization, they must really need someone to talk to.
Okay.
The first thing you do is make sure they're safe and they're willing to divulge any information that they want to talk about.
Okay.
And the other aspect of things is some individuals don't realize that they can talk to services without involving the police. Some individuals think that sexual violence equals I have to report, but it could be that that person at that point in time doesn't want to engage with the police investigation, but they want to do it at a later point. They can still do that.
Oh, really?
So, and it's all about engaging with the person. Really, they have to get your trust, making sure that you tell them that we're here to listen.
Okay.
There's organizations out there that are actually willing to give you the support that you need, and then you explore any further support that they might want, because I think that that's key, pretty much.
Now, there is always a window where they say that when something happened when you are 10 years old,
Yeah.
who were 5 years old, the statute of it's not the statute of limitation doesn't fall on it, in a sense that there are certain cases where if the law, as for example, says if somebody's thing is stolen, like now the police has a law here and nobody has come to claim it, the person who brings it takes it. There's always the smaller laws where it said, look, it's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The statute of limitation is over for that law. Now we're looking at sexual violence here.
Yeah.
Could you explain that?
Funny enough,
can a 10-year-old 20 years later sue his father?
Totally.
Yeah?
110%. And I think I sat at a conference some time back,
Okay.
about 2-3 years ago, and I gave a talk in the audience. And in one of my talks, I gave an example of a historical case.
Okay.
And the historical case must have been about 5 years per se. And then by the time we finished with the conversation, one of the ladies in the audience came up to us and said and disclosed at that point in time. Now, which really breaks my heart, because this person must have sat with this for a long time.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that there is no limitation as to when you're going to report. The police are tackling cases that were 30 years ago.
Really?
And these days, the science has really brought things at a better rate, and whereby DNA can be detected even years later. DNA can be done. Science has got so many things that they can do.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that if someone is abused in childhood, it doesn't mean that the person can come up and report, because the consequences of childhood sexual abuse is huge.
Really?
So
Okay.
and people struggle with this. I want to tell you out there, everyone who is watching this, that childhood sexual abuse, any abuse, there is no number of years, because I think people fear that who's going to believe me, who's out there who's going to believe me, since I'm bringing it at this point in time.
Yeah.
Really be it historical, because not necessarily that the DNA at the time is going to be the answer, because
Okay.
so many people go, it's consensual, or so many people go, actually I don't know what you're talking about, but cases are still being.
Okay. Now,
Definitely.
the issues is that, okay, as Africans,
Yeah.
something happened back home in
Yeah,
Uganda or
yeah.
in Kenya, in Tanzania, wherever we come from, and then you bring it over here. Can
Yeah.
that still work?
So
In terms of the way the law works?
yeah, so the law is different, purely because obviously, as much as the Metropolitan Police would like to literally help everyone out there, the way the things work is sometimes the law, the UK law or the Metropolitan Police are not in position to go back and tackle something that happened in Africa.
Yeah.
So really, I think the bottom line, or the most important aspect at that point in time, is give someone that sort of emotional support that they need,
Okay.
and tackle what is going through in their mind at that point in time, because it could be that they're suffering from PTSD, which is post traumatic stress.
Okay.
So it could be that. So really, we want to help them move forward. We might not tackle what's happened. We might not get justice from the perpetrator,
Okay.
from Africa, but what we can do is we can restore that person's life really from moving forward and carry on with normal life.
There is something that is bugging and that's been bothering me for quite some time, and that is something where we, unlike in the West, say for example, we have our cultures.
Oh yeah.
We have our culture.
Yes.
And then we have our various unwritten laws where I guess it would be child abuse, where if you try and discipline your child, if you
Yeah.
try within certain laws of the family, we still have dowry being paid for women in Africa,
Yeah.
and so on. So we got things that we have imported rather from Africa and
Yeah.
brought them here. And someone listening and viewing may want to know, said, look, how does some of these laws going to affect us? So, for example, your husband is your husband. You don't take him to court because of something. And I needed that angle because I've seen it in church, in courts here, where husband is actually charged with raping his wife.
Yeah.
Maybe better start with the definition of rape, because that's one area
So-
which is, it's a very, very gray area.
I think, like I said at the beginning, rape is really sexual activity
Yeah.
without someone's consent.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
And I think it goes back to say there is a T video that is on YouTube, and it's got very good graphics where someone has given consent a few minutes later,
And then
and
he changes his
then
mind,
he
yeah.
changes his mind.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same in marriages. So sexual assault in marriages does exist so much.
Really?
And
You mean
it's
you say
illegal.
sexual assault?
And
Not-
rape.
Not rape.
And,
Both-
and,
both- yeah,
and-
okay.
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
It happens in marriages. So, and it's illegal. And it's illegal. And yes, husbands beat husbands, wives.
Now, if I may interrupt you a little
Yeah.
bit, the word domestic violence, if it comes in, sexual violence, and now rape. There are three words in there.
That's right.
That I'm trying.
That's right,
We
yeah.
get a definition of the sexual. From my point of view, anyway, domestic violence is the constant abuse. It could be a mother, it could be a father. Then sexual assault could be simply touching you.
It mimics.
Yeah, yeah. And then rape is. Oh, okay. Let me let you explain that. Sorry, but yeah.
So it sort of mimics. There's a gray area because I think a lot of the sexual violence is actually hidden behind the domestic violence.
Ah.
So
okay.
so do you see what I'm coming from?
I get your point. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of sexual violence is hidden because behind sexual domestic violence.
Yeah,
Because sometimes, yes, he's hitting me. However, when I go to bed, he's demanding for A, B, C, D.
Yeah, okay.
It's his right to do A, B, C,
Yeah,
D.
yeah.
So I let him. So, and then people don't actually have the choice to speak out. And I think sometimes culture plays an
A big role,
aspect.
yeah.
Exactly. Culture plays an aspect in these things. And I think people in Africa, I'm sure there's so many concepts that and beliefs that a husband is entitled to pretty much everything that he asks for. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I get your point, yeah.
Where women most of the time don't feel like they have a say. And then as a result, there's the domestic abuse, there's the emotional abuse, because they're not going to say no. It's so many things,
Yeah.
really.
Okay. Now the thing is, I'm trying to focus now more on your work.
Yeah.
And then also look at when these cases happen, and you are challenged with the culture, and then you are challenged. I know the Indians face this a lot, and the Arabs, and even Africans, in a sense that where the culture you come from has such a
Yeah.
massive role. Now, someone comes in, and he has said something. Then before you go anywhere, he changes his mind because he needs to go back home. He needs to, is there somewhere in which you can say, okay, we can't win a case without her, and she's sexual abused. What do we do? She can't come forward because of the family.
So I think
Your hands are really tight.
Yeah,
there.
I think I will explain that in a way of in terms of what we call public interest, right?
Okay, okay.
So when I say public interest, it means that we've got someone of power,
Yeah.
someone in a position of power,
Yeah.
someone where we think there's been aggravated violence. There's a lot of that. Maybe think cases that you can lead to injury, and again going back to the position of power, children. Say for example, I will give an example of say a social worker maybe, or a police officer, because we know that once that is done, because then we know you're in a position of power, and we worry that what other things can you do. That way we have the duty of care to actually maybe inform other services, or inform the people who really we need to inform. There are other organizations that we need to inform with regards to public interest.
Okay.
Say for example, if someone is a doctor or along those lines, we have a duty.
Okay.
But with the case where someone has gone back to their country, that's a difficult issue to tackle, because then without the person, especially if they're above 18,
Yeah,
or if
yeah.
they are an adult,
Yeah.
unfortunately there's nothing much you can do when someone is an adult and they don't want to continue and press charges.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not, how can you proceed with no suspect?
I thought you could. Husbands can easily be sued now with the, I think, charged with the cases, even when they only have photographs. I've seen this in one newspaper. The wife couldn't actually come forward, but her pictures had been taken in hospital, and they were used as, I don't know. I thought they were used as some kind of evidence.
Was that some sort of evidence?
Yeah.
Yes, pictures can
Yeah,
be used for
yeah,
evidence.
because they took her pictures
Yep,
in hospital.
yep.
But she didn't want to come and testify. to it.
Yeah, I mean, the things have changed, really. There's lots of things that are changing now with regards to what the police can do. If someone doesn't want to be present in court, if someone doesn't want to show their faces, so many things they're doing video link interviews, they're doing
Yeah.
all sorts of things.
Yeah.
However, with regards to evidence, it doesn't necessarily have to be DNA. It could be that there's been physical violence inflicted on a person,
Okay.
which actually they can look into. And because so many times we can't prove with your naked eyes that something
Of course,
has
that
happened.
something did happen.
Exactly.
Now, there are parents out there
Yes.
watching this program, and I've got a son who's 15. I've got a daughter who is maybe 18.
Yeah.
And there are things happening. It could be the uncles. It could be the, and they're all keeping quiet. They're not saying anything. These are teenagers
Yep.
who are looking at their futures ahead.
That's right.
And something comes in on this level. If you come across such cases, what do you do as a parent?
So, and really, I'll go back a little bit and elaborate on the fact that we know that sexual violence happens in families. Sexual violence happens with dads, mums, uncles, you name it. And a lot of the time we know, again, touching back on this, on the cultural aspect of things, everything has to stay within the family. Everything has to stay within. So you don't have to talk about it. So this is where we have to be very careful with parents out there. And I think we have to create time and listen to our children, because if you don't give them that shoulder and that ear, so many things are going unnoticed. So many things, parents are missing signs. Parents are missing things that are really happening, because a child could come home and tells you, Mom, someone has just touched me. But then you're not too sort of concerned to sit down and say, in what sense did they touch you? Do you see what I mean? Has it happened before? So, and I think belief, because one of the main factors that people don't come forward is belief. Because who's going to believe me? Because if I say my dad did A, B, C, D, is my mom going to believe me? Is my family going to believe me? And you find that there's a lot of what's the word? The word I'm looking for is isolation.
All right.
Yeah, because
I was going to say that if it's do you go to schools and enlighten students at school over this? Because if it's within the family, unless the father is reported by a mother or something like that, don't expect any of these students to. So if you go to schools and do some mentoring there. And do you present this thing? Is it allowed?
Yes, it's allowed, because we need to tell the public, we need to tell the children out there what the norm is.
Okay.
You know, what is allowed.
And what
you
is
know,
not allowed.
exactly. Where is the line? How far is someone going? If someone is digging into you and doing something to you, or what exactly are they doing? Where is the line? Where does it become unwanted? Where does it get out of hand? And where do they now say stop?
Okay.
And how can they report? Who can they report to? So I think they really need it.
Okay.
And also going into schools, talking about this subject doesn't necessarily mean that we're exposing children to, other behaviors out there. However, we're teaching them that they can be more hypervigilant, really, that they know what's going on around them.
The thing is, there's the most parents who probably wouldn't want their children to be, even if you're simply asking questions, they might say, well, we needed to find out, we needed to be informed of what the children are being taught nowadays at school. There's a demonstration in Birmingham over this. We need to know what they're teaching our children. But these are issues that come out even within the family. So it also worries parents if people like you go in there and talk about this. So I'm trying to find a way you find your way in there through the teachers.
Not necessarily. So we do talks. Our organization really sometimes goes to different. We do teachings. We go to schools. We have young people as young persons advisors who go to schools and do a teaching really about where's the line, the gray areas, and how differentiation of rape is. So they do that. So many times, I've talked about the T video. The T video is on YouTube. Anyone can type the T video and the T video comes up. It mainly talks about consent, and really people can know where the consent is, where is the boundaries for consent. If someone said consent 5 minutes ago, doesn't mean that 2 minutes later they can't say
they can't change their mind. It's a different law as far as that is concerned.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very different law. Now, the code of silence is something which is an unwritten law as far as the African cultures are concerned, and other cultures, and it's there in religion as well. The Catholics have got that so much that even the priest won't tell you if a man has confessed to killing somebody, because the confession, the code of silence is there even among, the Islam, the religion has got that in families. The imams were being asked one day in Birmingham to say the cases they have dealt with Sharia law, and they were saying, no, we're not supposed to say anything. These are between the families. Now, with this code of silence in existence within the culture, in religion and culture, how do you people bypass that? Because I can see a real, if the daughter doesn't want to say, the father doesn't want to say, but you can see the trouble brewing there. You need to crack the case. How do you deal with such cases?
Really, I think it's all about reaching out, and it's all about telling people out there that there are organizations out there that care. There is organizations out there that will listen. And again, every organization is duty bound to protect someone's confidentiality. It doesn't necessarily mean that because your GP or your doctor is the same doctor as your mother goes to, you go there and disclose that this has been happening to you, that suddenly they're going to tell the whole world about it. So there is that confidentiality type of, we're really bound by confidentiality. So what I'm trying to say here is, I think it's people understanding. Yes, there is cultural differences, religious, cultural beliefs and all that. But I think it's people understanding that they can be believed. Should it be, like you said earlier, can cases that have been gone 10 years, can they be believed? Of course they can be believed, The numbers where we know that there is Samaritans where you can actually call any time of the day and talk about the issues that are eating you up. So it's a matter of knowing that there's other agencies out there. Now there's confidential services where they put numbers in different areas where you can call at your own time. When your husband is gone out, you can make a phone call if you want to. So it's understanding that, I think.
There's something that involves not the code of silence, but it involves confidentiality, which is existing with the doctor-patient confidentiality, lawyer versus client confidentiality. But then I wanted to ask you a question involving the morality of this issue. Your sister comes along.
Yeah.
She's had problems with her husband.
Yeah.
And you have that moral side of it because she's your sister. You can see the danger ahead of you. But then at the same time, there's a code of silence, whereby if there's no charges pressed, you don't proceed anywhere with anything, and you're not supposed to talk about it because you're not allowed under the law.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the moral issue, the moral side of it?
The thing is, you're not allowed to break someone's confidentiality. End of.
Yeah, but the moral side of it, you know that there's death coming somewhere there in front, and you're worried that the next blow the husband will land will probably kill my sister, and you have that moral side in you that confidentiality doesn't allow me to do this.
There is, say for example, the organizations that I work for, there is so many, everyone is bound with duties. So you call every organization in your, say for example, if you work in a hospital, you call for advice. First of all, before you breach, call for advice.
Okay.
Call for advice.
Yeah.
Talk to the people who need to know about it before you actually divulge the patient's. The patient comes first.
Or you can change your mind and say someone else should treat that patient rather than me.
That's right.
Yeah, that could happen. Because
confidentiality is key.
It's key. Okay, I'll
and like I said, someone else can deal with the case instead of me dealing with it.
Yeah. Okay, that's one way of dealing with it. But as any other person who have looked at the moral side, maybe I would anyway and say, look, it's my son. No. Something goes good. I'd rather lose the job. Anyway, going back to sexual violence, the cases that you have worked and you've been gone home and you feel extremely satisfied that this job has, what gives you that sort of passion, that gives that aspect that when you've achieved something?
See, seriously, I think it's a role that you get the satisfaction knowing that you've made someone smile, that you've spoken to that person, because at the end of the day someone has to care. And I just want to say and tell everyone out there that they are, like, again, organizations that really care. There's people out there who listen. There's people out there who can sort of help to change your life by talking about what's happened to you, be it in childhood, be it in current times. You can, and I love my job.
You love your job.
I love my job. I've been in it
one would think you get tired of listening to all the problems.
I love my job.
Okay.
I definitely love my job, because I think you have to love it to be in it, because it's a difficult topic to tackle, and one might think that it sort of gives you some sort of trauma, but yes, we do look after our mental health as well.
Okay. now the issue of maybe the increase in population of Africans here in London and in UK, and the population is that a lot of things are coming out from various community now. Now, if the numbers are high, how do you deal with this?
If the numbers are high, we try our best, obviously. Like I said, not all the cases are going to come out as recent. So it depends. Those that are recent, within 7 days of an assault happening, something gets done about it, i.e. having a forensic medical examination to secure the DNA and to secure the evidence. Then those that are happening, those that are outside that remit, then we discuss other options like support, therapy, and it's still the same concept. Unfortunately, some of our African countries are not privileged to some of the services like we're getting here. However, with time, some African countries have actually set up the SARCs, of sexual abuse in different parts of Africa, and they are existing there. So, but it's a pity. We need to develop a law, especially in our African countries.
Now, are you allowed to mediate, for example, if something has happened and you feel that you're feeling that maybe if we talk to both parties, we could resolve the issue that they have, depending on what your advices would be. You're allowed to mediate, or you're allowed only to be one side?
That's the police's job.
I've gone beyond your because I was thinking of, say, look, if husband comes in to collect his wife and suddenly tempers go high, and then you mediate a bit.
No,
you know, as far as you're concerned, you go straight to the victim and deal with the victim.
We deal with those that come to us. And then the police look at, and it's the same concept, really. I don't think if someone reported rape in Africa, that the police would sit down with both husband and wife. Maybe in some countries, I'm not sure. But I think it's really understanding out there that one party, yes, the victim can have a say about what's happened to them. And they can, because who are we to judge, really? Who are we to judge what's happened? Because we don't know what goes on behind closed doors for everyone.
Because the issue that I'm looking at now is that if there are issues that are happening within the family cycle, and this family cycle is such that you have to listen to at least the other side as well. We have a saying in Luganda that in other words, meaning that for those who don't, of course, understand Luganda, that you don't judge a boy before you hear what the girl has to say. It could have been the other way around. Now, the whole reason why I'm asking that is the sense that you may come across a case where someone has said, look, this is what happened to me, and so on and so on. And then you're looking at the victims only. Then the other side, you're going to hear a very different story.
But
if it ever comes to you as well.
That's the problem, because if there's no organizations like us, and it could be that the same thing would happen in Africa.
This is what I meant. The two victims, who are both a man and a woman, they both come to you. A man has been beaten up. His wife says she's been beaten up, and you're facing the two victims. But they're the same, a man and wife. They both come to you for help. That's the scenario.
We would separate them.
Okay.
we would separate them, definitely. So you can't, and I'm sure Africa would probably do the same. By separating the victim from the perpetrator, vice versa. So one would go to a different area to be examined and questioned, and another one would go to a different area to be examined and questioned.
Can you bring cases against both of them, against each other?
We do our job.
Sorry, I put you on the spot on that.
We're here we work for the victims and those who come across. Because we will never know the other side. Really, that's the police's side too.
Okay. I'm trying to bring in police. I don't know why. As you said, that a person can be abused when he's 10 years old. And that thing carries on. Now, there is always that element of what we do, because abusers sometimes become the abuser as well. When these scenarios come in, how do you deal with them?
Now, it's possible. So I would give an example. I would give an example of young children. So a young child might act the same sexual activity that might have been perpetrated on him or her earlier on when he was very young, right? And then he goes ahead to do exactly the same sexual activity. Now, sometimes they mirror what has already happened to them, and then because for them it could be that this is, unfortunately, they might think that this is the norm, this is how they brought us up. And this is what I was saying earlier, that mothers, parents, and really families, we have to be very cautious, especially when we're at home. Because these things even happen on brother to sister. and it could be that it goes on again and again
Within
and
the
again.
family.
That's right, within
Yeah,
the
yeah.
family, and not necessarily that the child will stop. It could be that he continuously does it on a continuous basis, but because the children don't have anyone to talk to, the brother continues to does that, or the sister continues to does that, and it becomes the norm.
No, my main worry now here is that parents are children out, or parents or sons and daughters who are out there may worry that if they have been abused by their parents,
Yeah.
they are going to be abusers themselves. Can this sort of cycle be stopped in a way?
Of course, it can be stopped because, and this is what I said earlier, that we're not listening to
Okay,
children.
okay.
You know, we're not listening to people out there, and chances are, and this is what I said, because it damages one's mental health. You know, and you could find that actually the abuser has been your dad in the house for some
an
time,
uncle who's
been
been
an uncle who's been abusing you for some time, and yes, those cases are there and they're common. So it's something that we undermine or we
Yeah.
underlook, and not realize that actually it's going on. Most of the time, going back to what you asked me earlier, if you find that an uncle has abused someone in the family, if you look closer to home, they've probably done it before,
Yeah.
or they're doing it to other people who haven't come forward. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Now, the education has always been seen as a major issue to me, in that if you educate the people, if you educate the women, you know, you're going to have a better nation. You're going to have everything, because
Yeah.
the education comes in as a key. Now, I don't know with the programs that you do, whether there is an element of, say, before we get victims in, can we invite all the women families, for example, to come for a basic education, or can we invite the men to come in, because these are problems that are in a home.
Yeah.
Now, if some kind of education takes place in a home, then probably we wouldn't be having all this conversation.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to go into people's homes and say you're educating them. And I think what we have
No,
to
you call them. You call
what-
them to
what we have
your
to-
organization, so that they come around on a weekend or something like that.
this is why going into schools would be you see, this is
okay.
why going into schools would be a perfect opportunity. Maybe if there's a parents mothers evening and the children are there, perhaps that could be a forum to talk about this.
Okay.
Or you talk to the children, for the children to actually see what we're highlighting,
All right.
and then perhaps they can spread it home to their parents. But it's very difficult to get mother.
To get the parents.
That's
to get
right.
the parents.
Get the parents together.
Yeah.
It's more awareness is needed, pretty much.
I know. But the biggest awareness, I think, is needed in homes, especially in homes. But what about grooming? Grooming is another. We've seen this with the drug dealers and so on, but it can also happen within homes.
110%.
Yeah.
So and grooming is very common in a way, in a sense that children are really from earlier on. You're being given, say for example, you're being given a handbag, and a lot of the times people might target families that are not well-to-do families. Then you're buying ABCD for this child. You're giving them. Some people are giving them drugs. Some people are giving them things that they feel they could want to have.
Okay.
You know, and then it goes on till adulthood. Not until they've reached that adulthood stage that they realize that actually I've been groomed all my childhood years. And yes, that can definitely come forward.
Now the thing is, how do you spot that? Is there are there signs and clues here and there which a parent can look at and say, I think I better put a tape somewhere and listen, because they will be telling you. What are the signs?
So some of the clues could be the appearance of a child, the behavior changes in a child.
Okay.
Suddenly a child buys things or is coming home with different things that you haven't purchased for that child. And then
we are looking at 13, 14-year-olds.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And then, or some children are getting into different habits that they have not been going into. And then it could be that, again, it's mothers, again, fathers, mothers, looking out to see what are the changes in your children, you know. It could be that actually there is isolation. Not necessarily that you're going to see the physical things and the tangible things being happening, but the child could also isolate themselves.
Okay. So basically, you look for a sign of isolation or a sign of
yeah, isolation. They can feel sort of, because there is a little bit of shame. They're scared, you know, and also who's going to believe them.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
for example, if uncle has been grooming them, and then uncle says, well, who are you going to tell and who's going to believe you? The
Yeah.
child is bound to keep quiet.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
I see your point. I see your point.
Yeah.
Within the African community, we also have ways in which adults usually sit and uh, and resolve issues. And I could see this as a major issue.
And I think
for-
that's dangerous.
Why?
I think that's dangerous because, and I think within our African communities where we have the stigma, we have stigma, we don't want the culture. And a lot of people, you find that everyone else knows everyone's business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the
yeah.
African community.
Yeah, yeah.
So you find that if it comes out, it causes huge implications.
Okay,
And as a
okay.
result, people are not speaking out, and then people tend to resolve within the community. But the danger to that, the abuser is not going to go away.
Of course not.
The
yeah.
abuser is not going to stop, because actually what they're doing is they're just sealing it, and
Yeah.
then the child is keeping quiet,
Okay.
and then it carries on. But then later on, you find that those are the people who really struggle in adulthood because of unresolved issues that has never been talked about.
Yeah. So the key words here, because we're coming towards the end of the program,
Yeah.
you give parents advice. Let them have a look and
Yeah.
see how the behavior of the child. That's
Yeah.
one thing. If
Yeah.
it's happening, it could be an adult as
And-
well. How do you support an abuser or a victim who's
Yeah.
an adult? Because they won't tell you as well, but you might want to help. How do you do that?
It's really difficult to spot. It's difficult to spot an abuser. It's difficult to spot a victim.
Okay.
Although the victim sometimes may mimic or might portray some behavior changes.
Okay.
That one, and again, this really means that the parents have to work very closely with their children, that you can spot the differences, you can spot the changes
Okay.
that are happening with your child. That you could be in position, give them that ear to listen.
Okay.
Because, and I think we have that sense of who told you, is it
Yeah,
true?
yeah,
Are you sure so and so did A, B, C, D? Because then people are bound to just keep quiet, because after all, no one is going to believe me.
That now the advice you give someone to come forward, because
Yes.
you do that. You say that several times. People should come forward. Should come
Yeah.
forward. But having in mind what we are looking at the backgrounds now.
Yeah.
And you're advising them to get forward, and the chances are that when they get forward, there'll be trouble. So they
Yeah.
weigh the trouble they're going forward with. Somebody could be a banker, somebody who is backing on them, who is paying for everything.
Yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
somewhere along the way,
Because
but they are listening to your message, saying, "Come forward."
yeah, and this is what I go back to say, someone in a position of power, because obviously you're not going to tell someone because someone is paying your fees. So I'm not going to say anything. Someone
Yeah.
is paying my salary. We've seen so many cases where bosses are doing it because actually if
They
you
have
say
the power,
something,
yeah.
I have the power, I will sack you.
Okay.
So
okay.
then you're bound to keep quiet. But at the end of the day, somewhere along the lines, justice, because if someone, unless someone comes forward and you let the people who know what they're talking about tackle it,
Yeah.
you will never know. You will never know. And like I said, historical cases here in the UK, I know
Yeah.
historical cases are being tackled. African culture or African governments and laws, that might be a different thing that perhaps maybe me and you can start tackling.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's different.
How about this is a similar? This is something which is, just has just come up, and I'm thinking about it. Somebody makes an allegation.
Yeah.
It could be a husband. It could be a wife. It could be
Yeah.
a child. That allegation is taken in, but out of the blue, you start having second thoughts after talking to the victim, and you are thinking, "No, I think this victim is lying."
Yeah.
What do you do?
we as the service, and especially if I'm putting my health professional cap on, because you don't know.
Yeah,
The thing is, you cannot come and say to a person, I think you're telling lies, or I don't think this is true.
Yeah.
Because actually you don't know that
You might be right.
Exactly, it might be right. So, and yes, false allegations do happen, and it could be they do exist. However, the police are very good at actually putting two and two together and realizing that actually this is a false allegation, and the case would be dropped. But false allegations are definitely
because
happen.
my thinking would be it would be easier for you to spot them if you could, and then save the police time, save everybody time. Save everybody time of.
I'm not Detective Rashida, so I will not be able to do that. So you can't do that.
Okay.
Because, and again, going back to children,
Yeah.
a child can come and say, "Daddy has just touched me,"
Yeah.
and then you brush it off.
Yeah.
But actually, Daddy is really doing things to that child.
Yeah.
And I think this is where parents find it very difficult to accept allegations like that, especially when it's about the loved ones. So you cannot prove something unless otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't prove that it's false unless all the necessary routes have been followed.
Okay. The procedures and so on and so forth, which usually come in, but then you have to keep your reservation to yourself. As long as you report the case and you put it at somebody's desk, it becomes someone else's responsibility.
The police will deal with that.
It's
the police usually will always tackle what's
now.
happening.
What message are you sending out there to
so
sexual abused people?
Yeah.
The women, the men, because we tend to forget that men are abused as well.
Yes.
I think that their levels are going up of the men who are abused, because usually there's tendency to keep backwards and not to say anything.
Yeah.
How are they going to think that my wife has been abusing me?
Yes.
They must be thinking I'm crazy.
Yeah. So my message to everyone out there who is watching, the children is please parents, fathers, uncles, and everyone else who is out there. I think it's to believe your child, and I think believe the child before you decline what they're bringing to your table.
Okay.
And I think give them that ear to listen, because a lot of our times our children will run to you as a parent as the first point of contact.
Okay.
If you dismiss them, then that means that that's something that is going to go unsaid, and you will find that it will happen again and again, but then it ruins someone's future for life sometimes because of that thing that never goes away.
Okay.
And as people grow up, you find that so many times they will happen to have
flashbacks.
Flashbacks, and so for allegations happen to men. I mean, incidences happen to men as well. So there is services out there. For men, definitely there's lots of services out there for men. There's services out there for women as well, and there's different organizations now that are willing and ready to help victims out there. And like I said, it's happening in African countries. I know we're airing on Africa now, but Africa as well, I think people should know, wherever part of Africa that there is, sexual activities without your consent is a no. That is going outside the boundaries. That is illegal. That is the definition of rape, and people should respect that.
Okay. With our cultures, when it comes to our cultures, the advice is, because much as the education comes in as well, we've got to look at the cultures as well and say, look, although this is what the culture says, this is the level of the law. Can that be part of and parcel of the system, for example?
I totally believe that sexual violence, regardless of culture, regardless of religion, there is no one who is given a right to inflict pain or to inflict anything that they don't want to do against their body, against their will, against their consent. That is wrong, regardless of culture, religion, political, everything else. It's wrong. Consent is consent. Consent can be withdrawn at any time. Consent can be gained back at any time. Period.
You've heard that. You've heard that. Don't say you never heard that. Consent can be withdrawn, even by
That's
men.
right.
Even by men.
Yeah.
Men can withdraw their consent as well.
Totally.
So it's not just the women who can withdraw their consent. Anyway, that's what the law says. I just want to thank you very, very much for coming here and tell us all about your work and the kind of, and I wish you the best in everything that
Thank you very much, sir.
you're going to
Thank
do for now and for the future.
Thank
and come again next time and tell
Indeed.
us more about it, because
Indeed.
it's something rare. We
It's
normally
it's
talk
very
about, but
rare, and we can talk until the dogs
I know,
come home.
I know,
We
I
can.
know.
It's a big sort of topic.
Yeah, it is. It is a massive topic, and it's really needed. Society needs it.
Yes, yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much for viewing us, and I do hope that we'll be together again next week for another edition of Africa Speaks. Thank you, and may God bless you.